Why everyone uses you, the brutal truth. You're always the first person they call when they need something, but when you need them. Radio silence. Sound familiar? Today, we're exposing the brutal truth about why people only want you when they need you, and more importantly, how to break this toxic cycle forever. If you've ever felt like a human ATM, emotional dumping ground, or emergency contact for everyone except yourself, this video will change everything. We're diving deep into the psychology behind why some people become magnets for users and takers, while others command respect and reciprocity. By the end of this video, you'll have the exact blueprint to transform from being someone's convenience into someone they genuinely value and respect.
The message that follows is not for the weak.
Picture Sarah, a 28-year-old marketing professional who spent her entire weekend helping her friend move apartments. Again. This was the third time in 2 years, and each time Sarah rearranged her schedule, bought pizza, and provided emotional support through the stress. But when Sarah's grandmother passed away last month and she desperately needed someone to talk to, that same friend was too busy with a Netflix binge. Sarah's story isn't unique. It's the reality for millions of people who've unconsciously trained others to see them as a resource rather than a relationship. The human element here cuts deeper than most people realize. When you're constantly available for others, but find yourself alone during your darkest moments, it doesn't just hurt, it rewires your brain to question your own worth. You start believing that your value lies solely in what you can provide, not who you are. This creates a devastating cycle where you give more to prove your worth, which only attracts more takers who confirm your worst fears about conditional love. The tragedy is that genuinely caring people often become the biggest targets because their empathy is mistaken for weakness and their generosity is exploited rather than appreciated. The pattern of being used starts with what psychologists call intermittent reinforcement, the most addictive form of behavioral conditioning. When someone occasionally shows you appreciation or reciprocates your kindness, your brain releases dopamine and creates a powerful addiction to that validation. This is why you keep giving to people who barely give back, because those rare moments when they do acknowledge, you feel incredibly rewarding. It's the same mechanism that makes gambling so addictive, except instead of money, you're betting your time, energy, and emotional well-being on people who see you as a slot machine rather than a human being. The development of this dynamic often traces back to childhood patterns where love was conditional on performance or usefulness. If you grew up in an environment where affection came only when you were helpful, achieved something, or solved someone's problems, you unconsciously learned that your worth equals your utility. This programming runs so deep that even as adults, you automatically default to proving your value through service rather than simply existing as someone worthy of love and respect. The cruel irony is that the harder you try to earn love through giving, the less likely you are to receive genuine affection. What makes this pattern particularly insidious is how it disguises itself as virtue. Society celebrates selflessness and giving, so when you're constantly helping others, you feel morally superior and justified in your behavior. But there's a crucial difference between healthy generosity and compulsive people-pleasing. Healthy giving comes from abundance and choice. You help because you want to and can afford to. Compulsive giving comes from scarcity and fear. You help because you're terrified of rejection and believe it's your only path to acceptance. This distinction is critical because it determines whether your relationships are built on mutual respect or exploitation. Dr. Harriet Braker, a renowned clinical psychologist, identified this phenomenon as the disease to please, a psychological condition where individuals compulsively seek approval through excessive giving and self-sacrifice. Her research revealed that people pleasers activate the same neural pathways as those with addiction disorders, creating a biochemical dependency on external validation. The prefrontal cortex, responsible for rational decision-making, becomes hijacked by the limbic system's desperate need for acceptance. This neurological hijacking explains why intelligent, capable people repeatedly make irrational choices to help others at their own expense, even when they consciously recognize the pattern. Ancient Stoic philosophers like Marcus Aurelius warned against this very trap over 2,000 years ago. In his Meditations, he wrote about the danger of seeking validation from others and the importance of internal worth. The Stoics understood that when you base your self-worth on external approval, you become a slave to other people's opinions and needs. Modern attachment theory, developed by John Bowlby, provides the scientific framework for understanding why some people develop anxious attachment styles that manifest as compulsive giving. These individuals learned early that love is earned through performance, creating a lifelong pattern of trading their resources for temporary acceptance. Psychologist Dr. Robert Cialdini's research on reciprocity reveals a disturbing truth. Genuine takers are immune to the psychological pressure of reciprocity that governs normal human relationships. While healthy individuals feel obligated to return favors, exploitative people have learned to compartmentalize their relationships, taking from givers without experiencing the psychological discomfort that would normally trigger reciprocal behavior. This means that your natural assumption, that kindness will be returned, is fundamentally flawed when dealing with users. They've either developed narcissistic traits that prevent empathy, or they've consciously chosen to exploit others' goodness for personal gain. Here's something that will shock you. There's a specific psychological test that reveals whether someone sees you as a person or a resource in under 30 seconds. It's called the emergency versus celebration test, and it's so accurate that therapists use it to identify toxic relationships. The test works like this. Think about the last 5 times each person in your life contacted you. Were they reaching out because they needed something, or were they sharing good news and wanting to celebrate with you? The ratio reveals everything about how they truly perceive your relationship. But here's the twist. Most people fail this test not because they're bad people, but because they've unconsciously trained others to see them only as problem solvers. What's even more fascinating is the 48-hour rule that relationship experts use to distinguish between genuine friends and emotional vampires. When someone asks for help, notice what happens in the 48 hours after you've provided it. Do they check in on how you're doing? Do they express genuine gratitude beyond a quick thanks? Or do they disappear until the next crisis? This pattern is so predictable that you can actually forecast someone's behavior with 94% accuracy based on their post-help engagement. The most revealing part isn't what they do, it's what they don't do. Genuine people naturally follow up because they see you as a whole person, not just a solution to their problem. But here's the most intriguing discovery from recent psychological research. There's a hidden benefit to being used that keeps people trapped in these cycles, and it's not what you think. It's called savior complex dopamine, the neurochemical high you get from being needed and indispensable. Your brain literally becomes addicted to the feeling of being someone's hero, even when it's destroying your life. This addiction is so powerful that some people unconsciously seek out broken, needy individuals because healthy, self-sufficient people don't provide the same neurochemical reward. The question that will haunt you is this: are you helping people because you genuinely care, or because you're addicted to feeling important? The psychological damage of being constantly used creates what researchers call emotional depletion syndrome, a condition where your capacity for genuine emotion becomes severely compromised. When you're always giving but rarely receiving, your brain starts to shut down its emotional processing centers as a protective mechanism. This manifests as feeling numb during moments that should bring joy, struggling to connect with your own needs and desires, and experiencing a persistent sense of emptiness even when surrounded by people. The most devastating aspect is that you lose touch with your authentic self because you've spent so long being what others need that you forget who you actually are beneath all the people-pleasing. The impact extends far beyond emotional numbness. It literally rewires your stress response system. Chronic givers develop what psychologists term hypervigilant helper syndrome, where your nervous system remains in a constant state of alert, scanning for others' needs while ignoring your own distress signals. This creates a cascade of physical symptoms: chronic fatigue, insomnia, digestive issues, and a compromised immune system. Your body is essentially in a perpetual state of fight or flight, not because you're in danger, but because you've conditioned yourself to prioritize everyone else's emotional state over your own physiological well-being. The cruel irony is that while you're trying to help others feel better, you're systematically destroying your own health. Perhaps the most insidious psychological impact is the development of learned helplessness in reverse, where you become so accustomed to solving others' problems that you lose confidence in your ability to prioritize your own needs. You start believing that your problems are less important, your pain is more manageable, and your dreams can wait because others always seem to need you more urgently. This creates a distorted reality where you become the supporting character in your own life story. The long-term consequence is a complete erosion of self-advocacy skills, leaving you unable to ask for help even when you desperately need it, because you've trained yourself to believe that your role is to give, not receive. Paragraph 1. The transformation from being used to being valued doesn't happen overnight, but it starts with one radical shift in mindset: understanding that healthy relationships require boundaries, not endless availability. When you begin to treat your time, energy, and emotional resources as precious commodities rather than unlimited supplies, something magical happens. The users naturally filter themselves out of your life, while genuine people step up to meet you at your new standard. This isn't about becoming selfish or cold. It's about recognizing that sustainable relationships require mutual investment. The people who truly care about you will respect your boundaries and appreciate you more when you stop being a doormat and start being a person with needs, limits, and self-respect. Paragraph 2. Your worth was never determined by how much you could give or how useful you could be to others. You are inherently valuable simply because you exist, and the right people will see that value without requiring you to prove it through constant service. The journey to breaking free from being used is ultimately a journey back to yourself, rediscovering your authentic needs, desires, and boundaries that got buried under years of people-pleasing. Remember this: the people who only want you when they need you were never really your friends to begin with. They were just taking advantage of your beautiful heart. Now it's time to protect that heart, while still keeping it open for those who deserve to be there. Your future self will thank you for having the courage to choose respect over being needed.